You know, that's how good we are. That's all the intro we need.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
you
think
got
you
to
need
get
any more than
Maria's
that.
pretty face on there, dude.
Well,
I know.
if she keeps coming on, we're definitely that will increase our viewership. No doubt about it.
It has. Maria's
Beauty and the
good
Beast
for.
It's Beauty and the Beast, for Christ's sakes.
Thanks, Joe.
For you and Steve. Speak for you and Steve.
It's good. Well, I like the goatee.
I was thinking you and Steve. You.
Well, I mean, Maria is good for an increase of at least 10,000 viewership.
Oh, at least.
So that's why she's so amazing, and with her 4,500 jobs. But this is the best show covering Uconn basketball right now. This is Husky Hoops, and we have confirmation from our good friend who follows us everywhere, Chris D, who always has something to say. Says we're better, we're real, we're honest, and they love us, and that's what's most important, that the people love us. But I wanted to start off because I did a little bit of research this time, and watched some of the games, and the Providence game, Joe.
Yes,
was
Steven.
what I mean. You had mentioned that obviously Liam being out. It looks like it's the high ankle sprain is going to be a couple weeks, and that is one of the worst injuries to have. I've had about 20 of them, and they take so long to heal. So I do hope they give him the time to get through it. But can they sacrifice him for that long? I mean, Diarra played the game of his life, but can they get through the next few weeks without Liam Mcneely?
Well, they have to. It's not a question of if can.
Well,
they have to. They do have
to. Yes,
they know he's going to be out. They understand that it's going to be a challenge because he does so much for them. And I think the Providence game it just took a while for them to adjust to being without him. That's all. I mean, yeah. And Providence came in with an edge because they were so awful in their previous game. And give them credit. That's tough. That's the worst environment. One of the worst environments in college basketball if you're a visiting player is Campbell. And
yes.
and they stood up to the challenge, but UConn found answers. I mean, Diarra was great. Shoes guy Mahaney was great. Harris was great.
Solo played well.
Solo played well. Caravan was okay. Wasn't great, but was okay. So yeah, I think the big thing is they've got to play. They're going to play without him, and I would agree. I think you want to err on the side of caution, especially with a great young talent like that. Just like as Maria said, we'll say with Paige.
Yeah.
In the women's game, and Maria, correct me if you think I'm wrong. There's no balance in the Big East. There's UConn and there's everybody else. So you can be cautious with her. And as Gino said in his avail yesterday, gives other players a chance to step up.
Yeah, I think it's listen, you never want to have your best or one of your better players hurt, right? Because it gets them out of a groove a little bit. But I do think that both the men and the women can benefit from other people having to step up and gain a little bit more confidence right now. To your point, I thought Reed played really well the other day too.
Yes.
He made some nice moves at the end of the game, had some great defensive possessions. And I think that what we saw when Paige went down, although the game was definitely out of reach at that point, is, you saw some people step up a little bit. I think you'll see that same vibe tonight. Obviously not a super strong Xavier team that they have tonight. So why push it? You may as well rest them. And again, give these other kids some confidence so that when both of them come back, you're just going to be a better team for it.
No, absolutely. And it was good to see Samson Johnson again. I mean, I thought he played a little bit better offensively. He didn't get the rebounds that he normally gets, but you said the team of him and Reed together equals a competent center inside player, and I think that gives them an advantage. And Mahaney was a little bit better, which was good because he has struggled the last few games.
Oh, I think he was a lot. I don't think he was a little bit better.
He was a lot better.
I think he was a lot better. I don't think it's even. I think by far that was his best performance.
He got more.
I'm hoping, Joe. I think from my perspective, when I watched, I was like, I really hope that this is now like his breakout game, where he can just like keep this ball rolling and turn into the kid that they thought he was going to be from the beginning.
Well, I think if he's clear of the point guard duties, Maria, because he clearly couldn't handle that. You know, I think what Dan's got to do is they've really got to start mixing Noel into the rotation and have him be the second point guard, and have Mahaney be a guy who can come in for 2, 3, or 4. You know,
I think Mahaney's got to take on like that Cam Spencer role from last year.
Right, exactly. I agree.
You know,
he doesn't seem to have Spencer's arrogance, which I say in a good way,
or his intensity.
Right, but you don't need it.
But he's got the skill set. I think he has the skill set. So
I think he's maybe a pinch less talented, but not a big difference.
Right,
not a big difference. I totally agree. But again, one thing that I'd like to see starting tonight, and you don't know how it's going to be in an environment like Villanova, where they're playing on campus for the first time in a non-COVID, year since '95. And let's call people out here. The reason Villanova played Uconn in the bigger building wasn't because the schedule worked out that way. It's because Villanova wanted it that way because it was more dinero. That's why. Pure and simple.
Oh, okay.
Pure and simple.
Yep.
So
I mean, the pavilion there is a
Oh.
tough place to play. Obviously, the women have always played there, but
Right.
it's small and they're kind of like right on the court there. So I think from the boys' perspective, I do think that's going to be a hostile environment, even though Nova isn't as strong as they have been.
And the students are on break. So as Baker Dunleavy, their GM, said, it'll be a different type of crowd. It'll be enthusiastic, but it won't be crazy students.
I bet you'll still have some students that might hitch back to campus for the game. Yeah. But not as crazy.
Yeah, we always have such a long break, and that definitely does make a difference. Dave, what did you think of because they came back from double digits against Providence, and it's the first time that Uconn has started 4-0 in conference play since 2001, 2002. That's pretty impressive.
I think the biggest thing they had the hardest time with early on was the guard play of Providence. And once they weathered that storm in the second half, they were really able to take over the game because Uconn had more weapons to be able to score than Providence did. Providence's 2 guards really did a great job in that game. And I think I think they scored both over 20 points in that game. And I think that was very hard in the beginning without Mcneely, and then guys were figuring it out. DR took over the game, I think, from the guard standpoint, and really did a great job. I think he had 19, and I think that was really, really important because I think that was something that they had to work it out, and that was the concern. Like when Providence came out, and the 2 guards were on fire. But they weathered that storm, and I think that was the important thing, not how good Providence is or isn't, but how they were able to weather that storm and be able to figure out who to get the ball to, how to be able to play without Mcneely, and Mahaney stepping up is huge. I mean, that's the thing that I think you're looking for, is that who could step up when a star is gone. And I think that's what they were able to do. So I think that bodes even well. And it's one of those things that you hope that would be what happens when a star goes down. I didn't know that it would happen immediately that well. So, and the fact that it did, I think bodes very well for Uconn and Hurley. I'm sure he's probably thrilled about that. He may not be thrilled about how the game was so close, but he's probably thrilled about the fact that a lot of guys stepped up.
Joe, what was your opinion about Jaden Ross? Because I know you had mentioned him before, and he got the start.
I think he's struggling. He's trying to find his role. I mean, I would not be surprised if we see Stewart start at one point. Well, instead of Ross, Mcneely is hurt. I just think I think Ross forces his offense too much. I don't think he lets it come to him. I think it's early in his career, and we've seen people, have to sit the bench for a couple of years and then play if they're patient enough to stay. But I think he's struggled a bit, and they're going to need a little bit more out of him if he's going to have this higher profile role.
Yeah, to step into that role and not score any points, and he only played 12 minutes. And
that in itself tells you how the coach thought he played. Because he only played 12 minutes. If he thought he was playing better, he would have played him more. But he didn't have to because Mahaney played so well.
And Jalen Stewart did get the 17 minutes, and I think he probably will be the better option to go with there because they got to make up the scoring for Mcneely.
And Stewart's been too inconsistent. That's Jalen's problem. Is he might give you 10 points one game and nothing the next. He's got to find a better level to of consistency.
And Villanova was one of the teams that obviously you said was better in the Big East. One of the teams that could challenge Uconn in the Big East.
Oh, I didn't say that. Not Villanova.
Well, it was Creighton
and Marquette.
Creighton, Marquette. It wasn't Villanova.
No. They've struggled. They've been brutal under Kyle Neptune. I mean, he was on the hot seat. What's that?
They've been that brutal.
What were you saying, Shu? We can't hear you.
No, I didn't know they were that brutal.
I say that's the first fact check of the day. I have to write that down real quick.
Write that down.
Yeah, write it down. That's number one of the day.
But they're playing better. They've played well. They had a hideous loss early in the year, but they're playing better. It's virtually a new team. They've got 3 transfers. They've got a 6'11" kid who's gotten 14 rebounds a game in the last 2 rebounds. And they've got a guy who's playing as good as anybody in the country, and Eric Dixon, who's always been a pain in UConn's ass.
Right. And they beat up Butler and DePaul, so that doesn't mean as much.
That's a shrug of the shoulders.
Yeah, it's a shrug of the shoulders.
Although UConn struggled with Butler. Remember that? At Butler. So
yes. And they also have already played Creighton, and they lost to them. They played them pretty tough. They only lost by 6 to them. So it could be a better game than expected.
Oh, I think it'll be a good game because it's the first road game without Mcneely. And one thing about him was he wasn't fazed by opposing crowds in the Texas game. That didn't bother him one bit, So I would think it'll be interesting to see what they do rotation wise. And look, if UConn plays their game, they should win because they have better players. But on the road, sometimes you don't get the friendly whistle. Sometimes, the shots don't fall, and you got to find a way to win. And I think that the fact that the 6'11" kid, Bokai, I think is how he pronounced it. I'm not sure. That might mean a little something different in the middle for UConn's 2 bigs, because most of these teams in the Big East don't have the size in the middle that UConn has. And I watched the little of the St. John's game last night. St. John's is going to be a load this year too.
Yeah, absolutely. And
in fact, I might have said, fact check number 2, Dave. I might have said that
you did say St. John's.
St. John's was the 4th team.
So that is.
You did for sure.
No, they got our boy Talik Brown on the coaching staff there. It's got to be good.
Yeah, he's been there a couple of years. One of my all-time favorite.
Talik Brown's on the coaching staff. Wow.
Because
he was with Patino at Iona, and then he went with him over to St. John's.
Because when Talik was a player, everybody said you can't win a national championship with Talik Brown as your point guard. Well, guess what, assholes? You were wrong.
Yes. Yes, they were. They were very
It
wrong.
was gritty. I still remember that shot in Madison Square Garden.
Oh,
He
the
took from like the
tournament.
top of the key because he never shot it from the outside really, but he had to throw that one up. That was great.
Against Pittsburgh. That was
Yep.
that was in 2002 when they, or was it 2004? I think it was.
It was 04.
2004.
Right.
It was during the tournament and the finals, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely remember that.
Well, if it was Pittsburgh, it had to be the finals because they played them in the finals 3 years in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. And wow, I was really surprised. I mean, Diarra obviously is talented, but I mean, going 38 minutes, Caravan 38 minutes. I mean, he went with not a lot of guys, and he played a lot of minutes out of these people because of the loss of McNeely. That's the
By
only
the
thing I
way,
worry
I don't want to
about.
correct you both, but it was 0-2. I just
It
fact
was
checked.
02.
So that's
Okay.
fact check number 3, David.
Okay.
Didn't he
Okay.
have a
I got
big
my
shot
tally.
senior
I have
year,
my
though?
tally.
What's that?
I thought he had a big shot senior year versus Pittsburgh too.
I remember more Ben that year. I don't remember Talik as much, but
That's when they all
Steve,
came in.
Steve, you're going down the minutes trail.
Yeah.
These aren't guys our age playing. These are guys 18 to 22
No,
years old.
I know.
Who
I
have
just
days
see the
off
minutes.
and here's the thing. When you watch the NBA, when the Celtics are winning, who plays the most minutes? Tatum, Brown, Holiday. When the Knicks are playing well, who plays it? You know, the minutes thing is so overrated. It's
Well, they go by the analytics now, and they wear the things on their bodies that tell them their health. So that's the only reason I go by the minutes, because
The catalog.
how
You're
deep the
wasting your
analytics are.
time. You're wasting your time.
I don't believe in it. I think analytics is
Well, then why bring
completely
it up?
crazy because everyone else does.
How
They have-
often is it used? I mean,
They have
Maria probably-
analytics specialists on their
in decisions.
staff.
How often is analytics used in because I heard Hurley talk about it in
Yeah, some programs use it a lot. I know the Uconn men, Luke specifically breaks down a lot of analytics, but I think it's more, they're not looking at it the way that Steve's talking about it. They're more looking at it of like, all right, what are our best defensive combos, right? Like what's our defensive percentage when these combos are out versus others? Like I'll look at some of our shot charts from an analytical perspective and see like, where are we shooting a little bit better? How do we get more shots there? Because we're shooting at a higher percentage and shoot less from the places that we typically don't shoot well. So I think there's different ways you can look at like offensive efficiency based off of combos and defensive efficiency based off of combos. But, those minutes are going to change every game depending on matchup, style of play, who's playing well that day. So I think like the minutes thing is not as crucial as some of the other analytics that are going behind it.
Yeah, foul trouble also dictates that, right, Maria?
I mean, there's so many different variables, If you're playing against a team that plays 5 guards, it's going to be hard to, play 2 bigs that got to chase guards around. So you might go a little bit smaller that game, et cetera. So, I think it's more of, where do we score the ball really well and what combinations towards the end of the game that maybe we want to get in there. If we want to get certain shots, I think are important to know. But outside of that, there's so much analytics you can do in basketball. It's crazy, but
and you can almost do too much.
Yeah, I almost think too much information, you start to overthink it a little bit.
Right.
Like as a coach, you should kind of know, like, all right, I need to stop right now. Who are my best 5 kids to put out that we need to stop? We need to score inside. Who's my kid that can get it in the post to the player? So I think those things are a little bit more important. But, I look at defensive efficiency or, again, like, where are we shooting well on the court? Because I think that does matter. Like right now, for some reason, we shoot way better in the left corner than we do in the right corner. So we try to get our offense flow into the left side if that's where we're shooting a little bit better. Or you take it to practice and you say, listen, we got to shoot more shots on this side because we're shooting really poorly here.
And you talk about efficiency, getting back to Villanova for a minute. Uconn second in the country in offensive efficiency, and Villanova is 7th. So they run pretty good offense. Their defensive ratings, neither team is doing great. UConn's appalled that they're at 134. But Villanova, their defensive efficiency is 178. So you would think UConn can get the shots they want tonight. It's just a matter of making them.
Yeah, and I think on that note, like from the offensive efficiency for Villanova, I think what we'll see tonight, because of UConn's poor defensive efficiency, is like they're going to run their sets and they're going to wait to get great shots, because that's typically when you see that high efficiency on offense, it's because you're getting really good shots. And I don't think they rush. I've watched them twice this year, and they play definitely a little bit of a slower pace than they did when Jay Wright was there. But they're really dialed in to running their sets all the way through and trying to get that great shot versus just a good shot.
Exactly. And other than a few years with Jay, I mean, when Massimino and Lapis were there, they were pretty much a tempo team. You know, fast
same with their women. Their women are the same way.
Well, that was Harry's style.
And you know, she kind of plays. She plays a little bit faster because it's just the nature of the game right now. But like, playing those Villanova teams when I was in college was painful. I mean, they were literally dribbling around on the perimeter until there was like 7 seconds on the shot clock, and then they play 5 out, and somebody dribble penalty. You know, you got to stop them. But you were playing defense for 30 seconds at a clip every single time down against them. It's grind.
Well, it was. Was it 03 or 04 that you lost at Villanova?
It was 03.
No, so we didn't lose at Villanova. We lost to Villanova at Rutgers in the Big East championship game.
Okay, right. But I remember one game at Villanova where they won, and they treated it like the national championship, just like the first time Notre Dame beat UConn at South Bend. You know.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, wasn't it the end of the streak that you guys had in Big East?
That was our only loss that year. My junior year was at Rutgers versus Villanova, and you know, I always say it was probably like never that you want to lose in a Big East tournament championship game, but I don't know that we would have won the national championship that year had we not lost to Villanova in the Big East championship game. It was something about that game that we needed to reset and kind of just get that one loss underneath us to know how it felt to make some changes. And that kind of propelled us through the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, because you were rolling through teams. I mean, that was the year you were beating.
We were, but we weren't. 40. Like our junior year, like we were winning games games that should have been blowouts were a little bit tighter. But we were young. I mean, we graduated 4 starters.
Yes.
We had 4,
and not just 4 starters, but 4 great starters.
4 All-Americans. Yeah.
Well, that's what Dave was saying, that there's 10 high school All-Americans that they always recruit. They always get the best of the best as far as recruits go.
Yep.
Didn't you say that, David?
Yeah, UConn women back in the day.
There's no doubt. You said it was always
There were 5 high school All-Americans sitting on the bench behind 5 starters. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest change overall in women's basketball when Maria was playing, and obviously for quite a few years even after that, Gino got everyone he wanted. I mean, for the most part, you know, whoever he wanted, he got. And other teams were not, you know, there's 1 or 2 every year that would obviously challenge, you know, a few every year. But now there's a lot more, and especially with transfer portal, okay, because there's some money involved now too. You're spreading out the talent a little more. So that is a harder thing. Because you're not able to roll in another All-American because somebody is out. You really have, obviously they're all great players, but it's spread out across the country, and there's a lot more women's teams that are much better, better.
I think that what you're seeing is that there's a lot more depth of talented kids coming out of high school than there was in the past, because there's just more kids playing the game. I think you see that, and I think that what you said, and I don't know if you meant it this way, but I think the important thing to remember about Gino and the way he recruits, he gets the All-Americans that he wants, right? So I don't think that every high school All-American is meant to play at UConn. First of all, it takes a very certain personality. You have to have a very certain grit, and the way that you approach things has to be very structured and be willing to, maybe not score 20 points a game. Maybe you score 8, but you have an opportunity to win a national championship. So I think that type of All-American has always been really important there, because there's been some kids like over the years where like, you hear it now, like you hear Caitlin Clark say, UConn never recruited her. Well, now they're recruiting Paige obviously at the same time, but I don't know that Caitlin Clark would have thrived and had as great of a individual college career had she gone to UConn, because he wouldn't have let her take those shots from half court and kind of take the volume that she took every game to be able to do what she did. She was better suited to go to a place that kind of just let her do her thing, where, if you sent Paige to Iowa, Paige would probably be the all-time, NCAA point record holder or whatever. If Diana went to UCLA, or, you can go back and use all these different comparisons, but there's a lot of self-sacrifice when you are that All-American, when you go to UConn, that you might not be the person or the person every game.
No, but it's the sacrifice you make, obviously, to have an opportunity to win the national championship and have success. It's the team mentality.
Yeah, and that's why just also
sell is, like with that's true. And the sell, I mean, look for with Caitlin Clark to Iowa, they're going to run the offense through her right first, and then everything runs off of her, right? So they're utilizing her to score, and then they're utilizing her to run plays to other players. It's everything goes through her, which is different than what UConn's approach. And I think part of that success approach that he had was that if you were a 5-star and you were like in the next group of people that were playing, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, Maria, but you were going to get an opportunity to get worked in too, because there was a lot of games where you guys are winning big, and a lot of those players were able to get a lot of reps as they were younger, which I think is probably unique to any other place. So if you were a freshman coming in, you would get to play, unless you're ready to be a star right away. You would be able to play and be able to get into a lot of these games that were, blowouts, and get a lot of really good minutes for you to be able to work out some of those kinks until you were ready to be a starter, which I think was unique for UConn.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I'll disagree slightly, because I think if you watch Gino, his main players, even if they're winning by 40, they're playing well into the fourth quarter, right? Yes. And they always did back in the day, because he's big on you earn every second you get in practice. But I think the key there is that when you go to UConn, just the practice reps alone against some of the best players that you're going against every day, or the way he runs practice, give you that opportunity to develop into something that maybe you wouldn't have been able to do there. And I think not just the national championship sell there, but to be a part of the tradition, to learn through that culture, how to do things a certain way, I think is a huge benefit, not just for while you're there, but for the rest of your life.
I have to interrupt for a minute. I just noticed this. Shu, do you play piano?
No.
Okay. I just noticed the piano in the background.
That's a fraud, Joe.
It's a fake background. I've asked this because I like his
fireplace. Really?
Yes, he's got a green screen. He's bigger. He's bigger and better.
Culture, dude.
I have multiple different green screens because my background is this. It's a white wall. I'm relegated to the beautiful basement I have. So,
me too.
Yeah. Well, mine would just be a white wall, even though I could angle it where my actually couch and all that stuff is, which actually look great, but it also doubles as my son's workout center. So,
how do you like mine now?
There you go.
Look at that. You guys have the same living room.
That's it.
We live together.
It's so easy, Joe. It's so easy.
We live together.
I go authentic.
Authentic. Yeah. Well, you're in your office now. I know you're in your office. Yeah. I got moved to the basement as well.
Me and Steve are Joe are the same spot.
Yeah, I got moved to the basement I got kicked out of the dining room, so that's why I had to come down here.
All right,
But I had
I'm
better
going to start a
lighting.
new feature when Maria's with us. All right, it's going to be called the Maria Conlon Trivia Question.
Oh boy.
When she was a senior with Diana Taurasi, how many fewer field goal attempts did Maria take?
Fewer
Than Taurasi.
per game or
Overall?
For her career, for that season.
Oh God.
What was the question? You went out for a second.
How many when you and Diana were seniors? How many fewer field goal attempts did you take than Taurasi?
Oh.
Now you only played 100-something less minutes.
That's 2004, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I wouldn't know how many shots would be a lot of shots. But
10?
I would probably say
Is this per game or overall?
Overall.
Season.
Oh, for
Overall.
the season.
I'd probably say
I would say
50?
300, 400.
Lower.
180.
100.
253.
253? Oh my
Taurasi
God.
took 432. Conlon took 174. How did you only get 174 shots up in almost 1,000 minutes?
Because she's a team player.
I was the point guard. I was the distributor. Don't you remember, Joe, do you remember this story from my senior year? It was funny because Diana was up for Player of the Year, obviously, but she was also up for the Nancy Lieberman Point Guard of the Year award. And a reporter said to her one day, will you feel bad getting that award when the majority of the time you don't play point guard in the games? And she said, well, I'll take the point guard award and you can give her Player of the Year then.
Now, look, you were the point guard, but besides Diana, who had more assists than you?
I'm trying to think. Couldn't have been Ann.
No.
I would say Jess Moore.
Barbara Turner.
Wow.
Oh, Barbara. Wow.
Barbara had 105. Annie had 82. Jess had 41.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris D is back. He's back to fact check me as well.
Yeah.
Chris D is?
Yes, Chris D is back. Chris D is back. I think it's Courtney Williams, to be honest. I'm not sure.
Chris D?
Yeah. Yeah, because Courtney was texting me.
He know a lot.
Yes, he does.
He knows a lot of insider stuff somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah.
But I had talked to Maria because I watched the women's game.
Much better.
The women's game on Sunday against Villanova, and I pointed out that I thought the lineup was much better with Jenna L. Alfie in, and she did some good things out there. Just with her size, just having that presence, I thought made a difference. But I'm a big Chen fan. I think Caitlin Chen, who is the Princeton transfer, not the St. Mary's one, the Princeton transfer. I think she could do a lot more, but she just seems to hold back a little bit whenever she's on offense. She won't take that shot. When she drives right by people, and I mean she can pass, she can shoot, but she played 33 minutes and she just didn't have any numbers. I think that she could be something special if she played with a little more confidence and took some more shots and was a little bit more aggressive. Do you disagree with that, Maria?
I think Caitlin's doing exactly what they need her to do, right?
Yeah.
Which is running the offense, bringing the ball up so that Paige doesn't have to worry about that. I think she's been really steady. I don't think you're going to see many games where like Caitlin Chen scores 20 points. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that taking care of the ball, applying some ball pressure on defense to the guard coming up and getting us into our sets to take that load off of some of the other players isn't going to show up in the box score, but is huge.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know at this level if she's capable of putting up the numbers that you're talking about or doing those different things in those games because of the way that we play. And just because of the kids that she has around her. She did that at Princeton because she had to.
Right.
Now she can defer a little bit and kind of, just be that calming point guard that is really steady for us. And then I think the great part about UConn right now is that now that they got KK rolling, it's like you
Yes.
have that steady, and then you put KK in. It's like someone shot her out of a cannon.
Yeah,
And
she's
she
the
comes in and
Energizer
the
Bunny.
energy gets really, really high, and it's a different speed. And I think that's good because it switches it up for them. And you kind of need that yin and yang a little bit because there are going to be some games where we're going to have to play fast or speed the other team up. And I don't know that Caitlin can do that as well as KK does. And I think she's
No.
really starting to embrace that. I think she's playing really well. From the beginning of the season, I thought El Affy would be that fifth starter, but I think she came in, a little out of shape and just not ready from the injury. So I'm happy to see her coming along a little bit because I do think long term she's going to be a better option than Ice in there.
Yeah.
And I think Ice is better coming in off the bench and plugging some minutes here and there. So I think that's good because when, the two of them are off the floor, you got to move Sarah to the 5, at least until Aubrey comes back. So it's definitely alleviating some of those stressors for Sarah of having to guard the big and then, do all the other things that she does on the floor. So I think overall, I kind of I like what I see. I like who we have coming off the bench and when, because I think even when you sub KK and Ashlyn in,
Yeah.
Ashlyn's got a quick trigger. She wants to score points, which is great. But it's not like you're taking a step back when you make some of those subs directly off the bench, especially because AZ hasn't really gotten going yet since her injury. So I think that's been big for them. Obviously, Paige's injury the other day was scary. Thank goodness everything was all right. I know she's going to miss the game tonight, which I think is smart. As we said earlier with Mcneely, like just rest her. But that was that was a scary moment. I watched that live, and
Yeah,
I
I
was
did too.
like, my head was like this. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And it's one of those things where you say, like, just let that loose ball go, but you can't, right? You're in that UConn mentality where, like, you're going to go get the loose ball no matter what. But I almost would have just rathered that she just let it go. And I'm sure
But
Gino's
that place went
he was thinking the
dead.
same thing when all that went down. I mean, you couldn't hear a pin drop in there, but like I said, thankfully she's okay. I'm sure it'll take her a little bit to get back out there and rolling because she twisted her ankle and her knee. I mean, it was just bad.
Well,
She had ice on both.
She looked okay walking into the suite at MSG to give everybody an iPhone.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, that's good.
Did you hear about?
It's funny, Joe. I said, when I was watching and I was texting with Meg, who was doing the game at the same time.
Yeah,
and,
she's great.
I said, this doesn't look good because the way her face looked when she came back to the bench, right? Because when you've had some injuries, you kind of know. And she looked frustrated. She looked upset. She had her towel over her head. So personally, I was thinking worst case scenario because at this point, you kind of got to know your body.
Right.
Maybe for her, it was just a sense of like, oh man, I've been feeling so good. And now I'm going to take a little bit of a step back. But I really wish she would have came out smiling a little bit more. I think it would have put everybody else at ease.
Yeah.
But, again, it's the nature of the beast. I mean, you saw South Carolina just lost their best player to a torn ACL.
Right.
So stuff like that happens and good coaches will adjust and other players have opportunities to step up. Like, they're playing Xavier tonight, much better team than they were last year. They have a transfer center who's pretty big. And just so you guys know, look for number 2, Ajanique Mayo. I coached her in high school. She was on the all-rookie team last year. So she plays for Xavier. And I think Billy Chambers is she's going to do a good job there. I mean, she just needs some time to get more of her players in there. I think she's doing a good job going internationally and getting some kids. So I think I think Xavier was picked to come in last. In the Big East. I don't know about that, but I think it'll be a good test for UConn tonight without Paige. Some other people are going to have to step up. Xavier's had some close games, and they they were going to grind. They're going to play them tough. So, it should be a fun game to watch tonight.
Who do you think they start in place for Paige? Is it KK?
Probably Ashlyn.
No, they already said
Yeah.
Ashlyn.
Yeah, I would have said Ashlyn. I mean,
because of where you
KK
live,
doesn't
Gloria,
fit.
he
you
likes.
don't need KK and Caitlin
Right.
out there in the
Right.
starting lineup because Caitlin's not lights out from the perimeter, and neither is KK. So, with having them both out there, you're allowing Xavier to kind of sag a little bit. And I mean, listen, if they had that starting lineup, I would tell Xavier to go zone and just know where Sarah Strong is, because then you got 3 kids that aren't really super strong shooting from the outside, and Jana, KK, and Caitlin. So it'll be interesting tonight. I think it will definitely be an adjustment. My assumption is that Sarah Strong will probably step up and play really big tonight. I think,
which she has. Yeah.
I think Morgan Shelley will get an opportunity to play some more minutes, which I think will be good for her.
I like her.
Yeah,
like
good
her
for the
too.
team.
I like her. I think she's pretty good.
Yeah, she's got good size. She's
Yeah.
got a nice release point and a quick trigger on her shot.
Real quick, yeah.
So I think that her getting some more minutes tonight than she normally would is not a bad thing.
And she doesn't seem overwhelmed by the surroundings.
Not at all. I mean, her and Sarah, in my opinion, when they're out there, they don't look like Zybal looks like a freshman a lot.
Yes.
And she has her spurts, but she looks like a freshman. I don't feel like Chelly or Sarah Strong. I mean, definitely not Sarah Strong. Look like freshmen. But again, it's just a good opportunity for some of these other kids to get in there. Like I would love to see AZ get going a little bit tonight without Paige there. I think that'll be good for her to spearhead into the next couple of games. So, like I said, not like you ever want to have one of your top players out, but silver lining is it can help you for down the road because you get foul trouble or somebody's having an off game. Some of these kids have had the opportunity to step up there and play in the spotlight and have done it successfully. Muscle memory, they'll remember that from before versus just being thrown into the wolves' den for the first time.
It's going to get other people ready. Now, do you think AZ will come out tonight and take more shots and be more aggressive and try to make up for the scoring that they're losing with Paige?
I don't think we'll see. I mean, AZ can't score in the ways that Paige can, so I don't think you're going to see
different, right?
Like that difference. I think, AZ will try to get into more of a groove than she normally does. Obviously she's going to have to take some more shots than she maybe normally would if Paige was there, but I don't think we're going to see AZ coming out doing the same stuff that Paige did. I think, we need her to do that. I would love to see her do that tonight and kind of step into that role. But I think with her, she's still kind of working it back a little bit. So again, just kind of getting into her groove and have a game where she can score 15, 16 points would be great for her tonight.
So it'll be Sarah Strong, obviously. KK is going to contribute, and AZ, and hopefully maybe Jenna Alfie does a little bit more offensively.
Oh, I think everybody does a little bit more offensively. I think
to pick up the slack.
You have to, because if Paige is taking 12 to 15 shots a game and scoring 25, you got to make up for that somehow. And I think it'll be a collective. I don't think it'll be one individual person. I think you'll see everybody do a little bit more offensively, or at least look to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. Because I do think we have spurts too that we kind of just look for Paige.
Yeah.
Right. Like that tends to happen where you're not going to have that tonight. You guys are just going to have to figure it out. And I think, listen, even without her, we're still starting and playing some of the best players in the country. So it's not like some of these other teams where you take the best player off and you're like, man, I don't know how we're going to score 40 tonight. Like that's not going to happen. But I think it'll be interesting to see who steps up tonight and uses this opportunity to gain more minutes for the future.
And do you think that they'll hold Paige out for Georgetown as well?
Georgetown's a little bit different. I want to say yes, because it's like, why risk it?
Why risk it? Right.
But I don't know. I talked to Morgan the other day. She said she's good. They're holding her out. She's rehabbing, icing, all that. Again, it's an ankle and a knee. So it's a little bit different, right? You got to make sure both are all the way back healthy, because you don't one versus the other, then you can tweak something. So, I think let's see how we play tonight without her. I think will probably dictate a little bit more of what happens next, but I don't think he's going to play her unless she's 100%.
Did they also say that it was a high ankle sprain with Paige?
I don't know if they said it was a high or just an ankle sprain. Okay. I mean, you could tell she obviously twisted her ankle over and obviously, tweaked her knee, but, MRIs were negative, which was great. So, right. A little bit of rehab and taking some days off, I'm sure will help. So we'll see.
Steve, I just watched the video again of her walking into the suite Monday night at the Garden, and she was walking a little stiffer than I imagined. So I would think you're right, Maria. I think they keep her out for 2 games.
Yeah. There's no need to. And
I mean, let's face it, guys. We could beat both these teams without her. We should be able to beat both these teams without her. So,
Oh, Christy's asking a good question.
I think Courtney had a question for you that I think.
Courtney.
All right, go ahead. Fire away.
Don't, Courtney. You're hanging me out to dry. That I said that. She did not agree with me, Courtney.
She agreed with me.
She agreed with you. Yes, she agreed with me when I asked Maria yesterday. I asked.
Why don't you let the fans know what you asked?
Okay. You want to get me shot?
You understand?
All I said was I think that during the summer you should be with your team, practicing, grinding, the blood, sweat, and tears, togetherness. That's where it's built. And Paige, it was the summer of Paige. She traveled a lot. She did a lot of things. And I never said that she didn't train or work out on her own, but not being with her teammates. That was the only thing I called into question. So I asked Maria.
You really backtracked a lot. Hold on.
Because I got Joe and Maria here. I'm going to backtrack. I got Joe and Maria here. I don't want to say what I said on the other show.
A little more?
If you want to be a little more descriptive,
all right. Because obviously we know Maria's opinion, but I want Joe to get a little context on. So Steven brought up to Maria. I think yesterday brought up to me maybe the day before. I don't know, but that he thought that if we don't win the national championship, it's because Paige had the summer of fun. And my original, there was an adamant debate because I said it had zero effect on it. I think she's going to be playing.
Well, because you said she was still working out and training.
Working out. She was bringing actually her teammates with her to some of those places.
Yeah, the select events. Yes.
And I thank you, Joe. So Maria's in agreement with me on that, and I guess Joe is in agreement with me. Sorry, so Steve, you're out on a limb.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you.
It's not the same thing as Aaron Rodgers missing mandatory minicamp.
Right. No, I understand.
Different. And as David said, she brought some of her teammates with her, and you can't have organized. I mean, you have captains practices during the summertime. The coach can't be involved. So
now they can.
But not all the time. You're limited to it. You get a certain amount of days now that you can either use.
Yeah. It's not like they're in the fall. It's not like they're in there 4 days a week. Steve, that's one of your worst takes.
I just know football wise, they have unlimited time with the players. I thought the NCAA revoked it with everything.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not during the summer.
We do have there's a good point here in the comments. I didn't even know we got comments. This is pretty cool. But
yeah, we get a lot of comments.
Chris D said that he was watching UCLA last night. They're gigantic and physical. Why are we not addressing that in recruiting? Our lack of physicality, athleticism, and height has been an issue since the Mississippi State loss. Christy, I think you're 100% spot on. I've been saying this for like the last couple of years is like, how come we can't get one of these like 6'5", 6'6", like huge physical girls? I think that they thought with Jana.
Tara Walters, it's 100 years ago.
I mean, when she stepped on campus, okay, and obviously we already had Rebecca Lobo, But when she stepped on campus, I knew we were winning that national championship for sure. I mean, there was nobody going to be bigger than Kara Walters. No one's
Maria, how big was Jess? Jess Moore.
She was like
Jess,
6'1", 6'2", but like,
oh, okay.
I think that traditionally in the past, in the years that we've won, I don't know that we've had like these huge physical athletic bigs,
Yes.
right? Like even if you think about like the Stewie days, I mean, you had Morgan Tuck, she's not huge and physical. You had Jess Moore, you had Asia Swin and Tamika. They're not like huge, but I think that the game has changed, right?
Yes.
So I think you can't really compare like the Kara Walter days to now,
Right.
because I think back then it was really more still a position sport, right? Like you're a center, you're a power forward. It's different, right? A lot of these teams have tried to take more of the European model to their offense, which I think UConn has embraced. And listen, it's worked. I mean, we still are winning a lot of games, etc. But I do think that what makes it hard is as you get into the postseason, right, and you match up against some of these teams that have a couple of really physical athletic bigs, I do think it's something that we have to start looking at, because I do think it's something that we've been missing. I mean, even look at last year, the year before, like, Aaliyah Edwards is our big. It's not like she's 6'6" and she's completely dominating the post, and she struggled a lot against some of the other bigs or got into foul trouble. I'm more concerned about our depth in the post than I even am about the physicality or athleticism, because right now we have Ice and we have Jana. So if Ice isn't playing well and Jana's in foul trouble, now Sarah Strong is our 5. If Sarah Strong's got to guard Betts from UCLA, I don't know how that goes. She's really skilled. She's big. She's athletic. She's active. I'm not saying that Sarah can't do it. I just think that it's going to be a very taxing adjustment, because way more taxing on the defensive end, which is typically leads to a little bit more fatigue on the offensive end. So, I think that if we don't find a way to get – and, like, listen, we've recruited some of these kids, and they just haven't worked out, right?
Well, look at Liz Sherwood on your team.
Yeah, I mean, she was there for 1 year. She was a big kid, but she couldn't keep up with the pace. So I think that's part of it too, is that it's got to be the right fit, because you can have a 6'7" girl, but if she can't run the floor and play fast like we want to play, you got a 35-second player on a 10-second team.
But how many of those girls are out there to recruit or get in the transfer portal? There's not a lot of
I think that
out there. Women,
it's become a niche recruiting tactic for certain programs, right? Like South Carolina has done a really good job of getting some big talent. I mean, you got Asia Wilson, then you had Aaliyah Boston, then you had Cardosa. Now they got other kids. So they've kind of found that niche. And I think if you're a post player and you see these certain schools developing and excelling within that, you kind of gravitate towards there. And maybe you don't gravitate towards a program that's a little bit more guard oriented in the way that they run their offense. So I don't know 100% what the answer is. I think that we do need to start exploring that a little bit more. And like I said, I think we have, and I think some of these, like, we had DeBerry, who was, how big was she, Joe? She had to be like 6'6".
Yeah. Yeah.
She just didn't.
It's different. You don't have to recruit. Azare Stevens was 6'6". Kelly Schumacher was 6'5". In fact, I think Shuey was highly underrated on that championship team in 2000. I mean, she played great.
What did she have? 9 blocks in the national championship or something?
Against Tennessee. She might have been. I mean, I look at Brianna as more of a 4 than a 5, but I think Shuey might have been the last really tall big girl to help win a championship at UConn.
Yeah, because we didn't have one during ours. Nope. I mean, you look at Tamika, Asia, and Swin. I mean, they're all really like power forwards. Asia played the 5, and she's another one that I don't think got enough credit for what we were able to do, because she was just always so steady. Similar to Jess Moore, like you knew if you were getting beat, like Asia or Jess were going to be there and help side, there. So I think it's different, but I do think that the game is changing a little bit, where you gotta maybe have 1 or 2 of those on your roster. But here's the thing: is like, how many games does that help you?
Right.
And here's what I mean by that, right? Like, so if you're playing a South Carolina once, maybe twice a year. You need that big kid to guard that bigger. If you're playing UCLA once, maybe twice a year, but you're talking about 27, 28, 29 games
that you
where
don't.
having a big that can't get up and down the floor as quick might hurt you, you know? So I think it's 6'1", half a dozen other. Yeah, Courtney just said Dolson. But Dolson, well, how big is Dolson? 6'3", 6'4"? I don't know how big she is.
Dolson was about 6. Yeah, Courtney's right. And I just looked something up here. Last year, there were only 8 players in women's college basketball who were 6'5" and above. So there's not
they're not in abundance.
Yeah. Well,
so I think like the point of it, right? Like I think Chris D brings up a good point. Like, listen, if we have to face UCLA in the tournament this year, I think that's going to be a really tough game for us, right? And I think we know that. But on the flip side of it, if we're playing one big and 4 guards, Sarah being one of them, yes, defensively, that might be a little tougher to guard. But guess what? Way harder to guard us when we're on offense now, too, because that big can't step out.
Maria, who played against the taller girl from USC when we played them?
Sarah, the majority of the game.
It was Sarah. Okay.
Yeah, because Jana and Ice didn't give us great minutes. Ice started on her. Elafi came in, and then for the majority of the second half, because I was yelling, I was behind the bench, and I'm yelling, we got to go small. If we want to win this game, we got to play Sarah at the 5 and play 4 guards and speed them up because
she was just
it
working.
Just wasn't working. What we were doing wasn't working. So, Sarah ended up, but that girl's not. I mean, she's not
6'5",
huge and athletic. Like from a physicality standpoint, she's athletic, but she wasn't a physical in there.
Presence, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's different. I think it's all about matchups. Like,
right.
We could go through the rest of the year and never have to play UCLA and still win a national championship. Like UCLA could end up playing South Carolina and they battle it out, and then you don't have to worry about it. So, it's he's saying more on the body type. We look slender versus USC and Notre Dame. I think, again, I think we also have to take into account, like Paige is a tall guard, right? So we pose some mismatch situations with her.
She can go inside. Yep.
Yeah. So, again, I think it's something that we should definitely explore, but I don't think it's going to deter us from never winning a national championship ever again. I don't think that that's the answer, because I do think the game has become way more European, and you're going to see like a lot of these bigs, there's only probably 2 or 3 in the country that actually play back to the basket.
Right.
Even though they're tall and physical, they're still playing on the perimeter a lot, because that's everybody wants to be Luka Doncic or Jokic, like right? Like you got these huge players that now want to shoot 3-pointers. So that's also a little bit of a paradigm shift than we've seen in the past. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just said I just don't know if it's as big of a deal until you get into those scenarios.
It's only those certain situations.
And as you said, I mean, if you've got a 6'5" player on the perimeter and you've got a 6'5" player who doesn't play on the perimeter, then you're playing 5-on-4 in the offensive end. I don't, and plus Gino's got a style, and he's not good at this part of his career. He's not going to change that style. I mean, if there was a 6'8" girl who averaged 40 points a game and he thought he could help the program, he would bring her in. So I think the athleticism in the women's game has improved so much, with no disrespect, Maria, from the time that you played.
Oh, they have access to way more things now to be able to be more explosive and everything. But even if you look at the Notre Dame game, their bigs didn't hurt us. Their 2 guards did.
Right. Exactly.
And USC, I mean, their big had a good first half. We kind of shut her down in the second, but it was their guard that never makes threes that's making threes. And, I mean, if you think about it like this, so we lost to USC by 2 and at home, and I didn't think we played great that day. For like 3 quarters, I thought we played mediocre. Paige was non-existent for the majority of the first half, right? AZ didn't play. So you didn't have her on the floor. Ashlyn Shade gave you nothing. KK came in and played well. The 2 post players gave you nothing. So we basically only lost by 2 with like 3 kids playing well. and not even playing well for 4 quarters, and we still had an opportunity to win. So, I don't think it's as big of a deal. I know that when we're in those pockets and we play those teams, it feels like it. But I think to Joe's point, I don't see him changing his style. And listen, the guy's the all-time winningest coach in NCAA history for a reason.
Yeah.
So, we'll figure it out.
Joe, I wanted to ask you because the games are on SNY, and I know this is the last year of that. When they switch over next year with the new television contract, will they keep the same commentators?
No, you see already
it will
now.
Be different. Okay.
Well, they might keep some, but they're not going to have. I mean, I don't think they're going to have commentators that are specifically assigned to one team like Meg is with SNY. I think you're going to see a lot of different commentators. The game's on FS1. You get Kim Adams, who's very good. You get Sarah Kustok, who's terrific. ESPN women's games. Obviously, you get B, who's great. You get Carolyn Peck, who I don't think is as good. But no, you're going to have different. You're going to have all different commentators.
It'll be completely different. No, Maria, I said that just because I really like your friend Meg, who we had on the show.
I think that it's like I miss the old CPTV days where you live in Connecticut and you can get every game, and you got to donate $200 to get a mug. So right now it's so hard, even when you live in Connecticut, to get the to get the SNY games. You got to have all these different things. But the one nice part that we've always had with the tie to Meg and the tie to Kara in the studio is they have all the inside scoop too on Uconn. But again, only on Uconn really, right? And they're doing their homework. Right. They're getting it on the opponents too. Right. But I think we've been spoiled here in Connecticut because it's almost like Uconn SNY, right? Like it's Uconn Sports Network.
That's what it is.
It's not going to be a UConn. Right. It's not going to be a UConn-centric broadcast going forward.
Correct.
And that's what it is now.
It's going to be very neutral.
Which
I don't think is a bad thing.
No, I think it's good to be. As much as you're right, Meg's great. In fact, I take pride in the fact I gave Meg her start in '96 doing games on radio. Then she moved to TV the next year. And she's great. I think she's terrific at breaking it down. I think Kara, who I also gave her start to on radio, does a great job in the studio. But and UConn fans are going to have to get used to this, and they're going to lose their shit on Twitter, or X, or
the Boneyard. Is the Boneyard still a thing, Joe?
Yeah,
you know what, Maria? I used to get crushed on the Boneyard, so I never look at it.
The Boneyard's on Store Central. Yes, it's on Store Central. Joe, you didn't get crushed on the Boneyard. Everyone loved you.
Oh, no.
Everybody got crushed on the Boneyard.
Everybody got crushed on the Boneyard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which was fine.
I don't think I did.
Because you were an anonymous offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
You were the 6th best lineman on a team with started 5.
Correct, exactly.
No, that's not true either. You had a pretty good career, my friend. But people got to get used to it. It's not going to. And I'm with you, Maria. I loved the SNY days with Larry and Lee and everybody.
Oh, CPTV, yeah.
Pledge breaks. I love that.
Harriet Unger was the best.
Her and Lee Newton were terrific, and Larry,
they were good.
And Larry. But it's going to be a whole different broadcast starting next year, and UConn fans got to get used to that.
So, Joe, I'll ask you before we go. Villanova, Georgetown coming up this week. What do you like for the men? And the women obviously play Xavier and then Georgetown. What do you like for that?
I think the women win too easily. I think Azie's going to step up. I think Shade's going to step up. I think KK is going to play well. For the men, I think Villanova will be a much tougher game than Georgetown was. Will be. I think Villanova will be a game until the final 5 minutes or so tonight. And if
Right.
Villanova won, it wouldn't surprise me.
Wow. Okay. Maria?
Just because I think, and Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, at some point, you miss not having your best player. Everybody else can pitch in, but at some point, now it might not happen this week. It might happen when they play at Creighton, which will be the toughest game with Marquette in the Big East. I think tonight will be a close game. I think Georgetown will be a little bit easier.
Yeah, I would agree.
Maria? Yeah.
I agree on all fronts. Like I think part of what we're saying and we're doing is probably what both coaching staffs are doing is trying to find the silver lining where you are, where you can, because at the end of the day, you want your best player on the floor all the time. So, everybody will have opportunities, but obviously I don't think it will be as easy for either team without those two.
Right.
However, I do think that both teams have the pieces to still get it done and get it done convincingly.
And
what do you think, Cully? We want to know what you think.
I think we're gonna smoke both teams. I think we'll be fine against.
Wow.
For the females, the women. I really liked what I saw on Sunday, and I think they'll beat Xavier for sure in Georgetown. And the men, I definitely think they will step up because I think Mahaney making the improvements that he's made, and if Stewart gets it going.
Well, let me just caution you on one thing on Mahaney. Everybody got all excited when he had that one game, and he played really well.
I did get excited. Yes,
he's got to do it a couple games in a row.
I was just going to say that, Joe. We got to see him stringing along now.
Yeah, totally right, Maria. He had that one game where he hit 3 threes. I forget. Yeah. I think it was against the Baylor, and everybody was like, "Ooh, we got it going now." And then he went back into a slump, and I think he can, because that's the player he was at St. Mary's. So, but until he does it for a couple games in a row, I don't consider him a sure thing.
He needs that consistency, but I'm
hoping.
Here's
what I hate lately, and I'll leave you guys with this because I got to go hop on the bus. Why are the men and women playing the same night, almost at the same time?
I saw that too. I thought it was crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, they are.
I've never seen that, Joe, in all my years.
Big East scheduling. That's all it is.
Just saving money and
No, it has nothing to do with what's saving money.
I didn't know traveling.
No, yeah, I was gonna say it's nothing to do with money, but I just hate it because you got split. Actually, I think it hurts you with ratings because you got split demographics.
Yeah,
so instead of
you can't
all the people watching the men and all the people watching the women, you got half and half.
And I had never seen it before. They have to split between 97.9 and 105.9.
Right. It's awful.
And you don't know, I mean, both the Current and Connecticut Hearst Media said both games were on 97.9. Well, having worked in radio for 50 years, I can tell you that ain't possible.
That's not possible.
One of them's going to be on 105.9. One of them's going to be on 97.9. But I agree. There seems to have been many more conflicts this year than there.
I didn't understand why they were doing, especially during Big East play. But yeah, I agree with you, Maria. Good luck today.
Is
today
guys.
Eastern
Connecticut?
Yeah, you're going to be fine.
We got the team. The team post-game meal on the bus is deepy dough. So you girls have never had it before, but all the Uconn people that are listening, you guys, you know where it's at. It's deepy dough after the game. We're having.
I got to get on the road and drive.
They
out
weren't
going
to deliver. They said we're going to go through DoorDash, and then we dropped. Yeah, but we're Uconn alum, and we're coaching at.
Are you serious?
At Eastern tonight. So they go, all right, we got you. We're going to make it happen.
What is? I don't know. What is deepy dough?
It's the calzone place on campus.
Oh, okay. All right.
Joe, I lived on DP Dough for 5 years.
So thank you, DP Dough.
Bye, Maria. Good luck tonight.
That'd be great.
Good luck tonight.
Yes. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you.
All right.
So for Maria Conlon.
Well, no, you got to explain more about this calzone place. Hold on.
Oh, well, DP Dough. I lived off it for 5 years.
It was there while you were there, Shu?
Yeah.
I used to go all the time. I used to get delivered all the time to my dorm.
Joe D, I still know the phone number to DP Dough. 429-7577. I could call and order right now. I don't know if they DoorDash to New York.
My first 3 years, me and Zeke Rogers, like clockwork, every night.
At 2 a.m.
Hey, can I just throw in something? When we talk about best quarterbacks for UConn in the modern era, we don't talk about Zeke enough. Zeke was really good.
He was very good.
Zeke was really, we went through a stretch with Zeke and Shane where we had pretty good quarterback play for quite a period of time.
Yeah.
And then of course Danny.
What year was Zeke?
So Shane actually, so when Holtz came in, Zeke was not a fit for what Holtz wanted. So he made the switch and he moved Shane in. Actually, he played, I think, Brandon Bailey for a year or half a year, Zeke and Brandon Bailey. And then Shane became the starter the next year. But Zeke was a quarterback our first three years there, and he threw for a boatload of yards.
He could sling it, man. Let me tell you.
Cannon. Shane and you, I know you. I do a show with Shane, and you do a show with Shane. Shane will tell you, Zeke had an absolute cannon. He was 6'5", and he had an absolute cannon.
Yeah, I liked him. I forgot about him. I liked calling his games. He was good because he could sling it.
He was, and he could sling it. And he could throw it. And it's funny. Shane said to me actually yesterday in the show we do together. He said to me that Zeke showed him one of the single most important things that helped him as a player. Zeke used to go on the board and write down our plays against different scenarios, defense. Yeah. And Zeke would go through what the defense would do, what he thinks they might do, and what he would think would be open progression-wise and all that kind of stuff. And he would do it on the board. And he came in and he saw Zeke doing that before, I don't remember, one of their meetings or whatever, when he was a true freshman. And he said from that point forward, he always did that. He said it was so helpful. He said Zeke just did it on his own. He said no one told him to do it. He just did it. That was just something he did, like to make sure his mind was right. And he said Shane always did it after that. He learned that from Zeke. But yeah, Zeke was great. He just wasn't. Holtz did not like his style of quarterback. That was a big shift. That's that was one of the reasons why I moved from fullback to linebacker. He was looking for certain things in his offense that was fit. That was why he tried Wilbur at fullback, which really didn't work out well, and he moved him back to tailback the next year. But there was a whole year where Wilbur Gilliard was fullback.
Yeah, I remember. Well, and when Wilbur and Eddie Long, that began the tradition, which carried on for a long time, and even goes on now, of UConn having two great tailbacks at the same time. We had Donald, we had Jordan, we had Andre. We went through that period. When the program has prospered through different coaches, through Skip, through Randy, and obviously through Coach Mora, three different. They all had great sets of running backs.
Two main guys and a third that could do different things.
Right.
And that's what I mean, Mora used it this year.
Yes.
He had two guys, and then he had the third, which was Mel Brooks. Mel Brown. Mel Brooks is a comedian.
He ran like he had blazing saddles.
Blazing saddles, yeah. Mel Brown, who really was like a kick returner, could do all these different things. But it's interesting how that did start back with. I said to Steve, I said, Tom Jackson, you'll never know who he is, because once he was fired from UConn, he never coached again.
Right.
He literally never. I used to see him at the UConn basketball games. He used to go to the games all the time.
Yeah.
The men's games, and I would see him in the stands. I would go say hello to him, but he never coached again.
There was never a better character as a coach than TJ.
Oh,
I love.
You must have loved interviewing him.
I love TJ. I mean, I've gotten along with every coach but one, and I thought TJ was terrific.
He had a great personality. I mean, his personality was was second to none. I remember me and Zeke went to UMass together, and I went to Princeton and then went to UMass. I was supposed to go to Lehigh, but I ended up committing to Uconn. And but I remember we were at UMass. Me and Zeke were like, we liked it, but and then we both got on the phone after I went to Uconn a different day than he did. And we got on the phone after Uconn, and he's like, what do you think? I'm like, I think I'm going to commit to Uconn. He's like, I think I'm going to commit too. Like, we liked UMass, but we just thought Uconn, like the guys were just, it was I thought a different connection. But I remember what Jim Reed said, though, and he was right. He turned out to be right on this, although we ended up getting Skip, and obviously, the program really got in the right direction, great direction. But Jim Reed said, if you come here, you're going to win it. You're going to get one of these, which was a ring. And back then, UMass was always every few years they would win the conference championships. They were just Reed was such a good coach. But Tom Jackson was such a personable guy.
Yeah.
And I was sold. I went,
But he wasn't Lou Perkins' guy. And that in the end is what got him.
That's true.
Hey, I saw something that Chris put in because I could finally figure out the chat about Yates going to UNC and how they weren't called out for tampering like Washington State was.
Yeah.
Oh, Bryce Yates is going to UNC?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Wow. That's awful. They should get called out for tampering. That's crazy.
Well, I know for a fact from some channels that Belichick has talked to our players. Not Belichick. I'm not saying Belichick himself, I should say.
No, they're his people.
UNC.
Well, after we smoked him, I'm sure he did. And he's going to probably get Arch Manning, too.
Well, I heard they were saying Arch Manning, maybe Ole Miss.
Oh, I would think Ole Miss. Follow the family tree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
the grandfather and uncle.
Right.
Eli, yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I heard Ole Miss has the money if he'll leave.
Ole Miss?
To bring him in. Yep.
Yeah, play for Lane Kiffin. Who better to play for as a quarterback than Lane Kiffin?
I agree with that. I didn't know Ole Miss would have that kind of money to bring in someone like that. Then
Yates committed to, I just double checked it. Yates committed to North Carolina.
Oh my God. Wow. That just again blows my mind with the
and one more thing, because we're getting on here, but why is Bleeding Blue, which has done such a great job ending its run because of the fact that money's coming from a different place now?
I didn't know Bleeding Blue is ending.
That's what I read.
Oh,
that's interesting.
I did not know that either.
I'm pretty sure. Let me fact check. I'll fact check myself.
That's interesting. No, that's interesting because Mike had mentioned that to me.
I thought I read that it was. It says Bleeding Blue is no longer accepting donations. Okay. It says Uconn is entering a new period of transition in NIL activities. Over the coming months, it's anticipated with the impending House settlement in which schools across the country, including Uconn, would plan to revenue share with student athletes starting in the 25-26 academic year. The university will absorb all fundraising in support of student athletes into the Uconn Foundation beginning next fiscal year.
Yeah,
I saw VCU.
Mike had said that.
Basketball. They already I guess have brought it inside for next year already, and they're giving their basketball players $335,000 per year.
VCU
is that
shot?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, Mike had said, and so have the other guys, that there were too many different silos and they were competing for the same money, and that was hurting them. I just hope the Uconn Foundation, you can direct it to athletics.
Oh, I'm sure that I don't have any qualms for that.
The Jared guy tweeted something. Yeah, I know. Jared is a peach. Jared Thomas of Bleeding Blue is a peach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just reading what you said, Shu. VCU, think of this before we say goodbye. VCU will pay its players $5 million with revenue sharing.
Is that unbelievable?
Well, wow. You know what this signals to me? The end of college athletics as we know it.
Well, it's been ended for the last 20 years.
I mean, and how
the last 3 years?
How do the mid majors?
They're not going to survive.
They can't.
There's no way. There's no way they can raise that kind of money, and it's every year. Every year you're going to be expected to raise $5 million. You can't go to these donors every year.
You see Sacramento State raise $50 million in 48 hours?
Yeah, because they wanted to go to one FBS. Yeah.
And they gave I can't remember how you pronounce his name. I think it's Lin, who was at Alabama a few years ago, sat out, I think last year, was at another school, and they just gave him a boatload of money. He's like he was a superstar running back, but I guess he transferred and it didn't work out when he transferred out of Alabama. And then he sat out for a year. They just gave him a boatload of money. Yeah. They raised $50 million, Sacramento State. I think a bunch of it's going to a stadium. I think. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's what I read. And so they were saying until they get the opportunity to go to the Pac-12, which is what they're hoping to do, because the Pac-12 is bringing in all those different teams, I guess, like San Diego State and stuff. They're hoping to get an invite to the Pac-12. But until then, their goal is to flat out dominate FCS.
And they will. They will with that kind of money. Well, Dave,
if you
Chris
make the right decisions, just because you pay a kid $350,000 doesn't mean he's going to perform.
No, right. Absolutely not. Dave, Chris D wants you to put Paige Bueckers in the title of our Husky Huddle video in this video, because that's how the other podcasts, the Locked On people, get them to listen.
Paige Bueckers. Should I call it Paige Bueckers Summer of Fun?
Because I went off on her. Yeah.
Well,
no, I did. I went off on her.
No, I wouldn't. I'm sure you weren't going to do that.
I can't do it. I mean, listen. We get good views. I love the. I'll cut up the debate.
We'll cut up the debate.
I'll put something with that, because it was a good debate. It was a good debate. But
I still believe it.
But I think it's.
I do. I do. You work with your team all summer. I wasn't allowed. There was no summer of Steve. I never got to go places. I could have.
You were a lineman. There's never a summer of Steve as a lineman.
I could have traveled. I could have gone places all summer. Randy mandated we had to stay up all summer sessions. We didn't get any time off. We got a day off for the 4th of July.
You just said the magic word. Randy mandated it. Gino doesn't mandate it.
I know. No, Gino has changed quite a bit. I agree.
Well, but he never did. The kids were never up.
No, you're right. They didn't have to be
never up all summer.
No,
they weren't.
Was basketball, you still have the fall to prepare.
Yes.
Football, the summer leads into your season. It's totally different. It's two different worlds. Plus, I do think, it's a different type of. They're different grinds too. They're different grinds.
Yeah, it's different on your body.
Requires a different thing than the other grind too.
It's different on your body. I agree. So. All right. Well, we will let the master go. This was a great show. This one's going to be a good one for the icon himself and the voice of the Huskies and the extreme and pristine fact checker Joe D'Ambrosia.
How many did we have?
Voice of the Huskies.
I think we had 4.
4 for 4.
444. Yes, the voice of the Huskies himself. And the next great influencer, Coach Schuman. Coach Schuman's YouTube channel, Sports and Entertainment.
And next
Smash
time
that
he's going to
subscribe
play the
button.
piano for us.
Yes, yes. In his background.
I can't play like one thing. That's it.
Yes.
Mary
And
had a little lamb.
I don't even know what to say to that one. And I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe when he's got his facts correct. Steve Cully. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at life.